Griffin Dunne is our guest today. He's been part of Americana for many, many decades. Actually, his first giant movie was An American Werewolf in London. That is a classic horror film.
Such a cool movie.
Yeah. And he did a lot of great movies. He's out with a memoir now. His father, Dominic Dunn, famously would cover the OJ trial. He's had quite a journey in life. He'll talk about his deep, deep childhood friendship going into adulthood with Carrie Fisher. And we'll go over how he writes and creativity and just life as a celebrity. And he's a jack of all trades. He writes, produces, produces. I feel like I'm reading that. Writes, produces, directs, and acts. So, and he's a delightful person, just incredibly real, super likable.
Light on his feet, a lot of fun. I got turned on him when I saw After Hours. I'd seen American Werewolf also, but After Hours was such a cool movie by, what is it, Scorsese?
Marty Scorsese.
Yeah,
it's kind
Marty.
Of a
so
classic.
That's a big deal. So I think you're going to have a good time with him. We did. Here he is, Griffin Dunne.
Hello.
Come in, Earth to Griffin.
Come in, I'm here. Oh my God.
We do this for a living. See all this great light I'm in?
Look at this shit. You really thought this through.
Thank you for noticing that.
Well, look at me. I'm told this isn't being filmed, so I got the hair thing going on.
Oh no, I don't like it when you agree to go on a podcast and go, we're gonna do a little shooting.
Actually, I'm taking my hat off too. If you're brave enough to look like that, I'm gonna take my hat off.
Okay.
So. Your energy and vibe reminds me of David Duchovny.
Really?
Already?
Yes, because there's something about. Oh, I'm also I'm a medium, but also just looking at all your stuff. I don't know. You guys are both sort of smart, but you don't wear it on your sleeve.
Well, thank you for that, because he's a fairly recent friend. I don't know if you noticed, he gave a beautiful blurb for me on the book.
Oh,
he was one of my very earliest readers, because
Blurb alert.
He's an incredibly. If he was never an actor.
Yeah,
he would have been a great novelist independently of that. His novels are so good.
Really?
Yeah, like a seriously good writer. He didn't need this acting shit at all.
Well,
acting kind of sucks, doesn't it?
He's got more energy, Dana. This guy, Griffin, has more energy than Duchovny. I feel.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of a trifecta, because I always think of the Texas trifecta: McConaughey, Woody, and Owen Wilson. So if there's a third part to this, but acting sucks, we know that. We had John Corbett on the podcast, Sex and the City guy, and at the end, he just goes, and he's an incredibly nice guy. It's very, very interesting, funny, but he said, I made the wrong career choice because I hate being told what to do.
Yeah,
but you direct too, though. So
I do. But just going back to one more of Doppelganger.
We like to go everywhere. Yeah.
Is the one that every time I look at this guy, I go, he's not doing me, but I'm doing him, or he's doing me. But I feel in the same thing as Steve Carell.
I was thinking that before you said
I feel it every time. And I stopped acting for a while. Then we'll get back to how shitty it is. But I stopped acting for a while, and then I kind of went and took a Chekhov workshop by this pretentious Russian guy out of the Russian Acting Institute.
Perfect.
Who didn't speak a word of English, and he had a translator. And I did Uncle Vanya, and I went, "Oh my God, I got to get back into acting." At this age that I'm at now, I'm tragic and funny. I'm just born for Chekhov. And now Steve Carell's doing Uncle Vanya.
Oh, wow. There is,
but also with The Office and the whole thing. Anyway, I've always had some sort of psychic
No,
connection.
he would have done After Hours potentially.
And he would have been great in it.
Not as good as you.
No,
and he's a good friend.
Fucking After Hours.
Fum. I think I smell a Golden Globe nomination. That was for you for After Hours.
Oh.
Yes, I did. I did get nominated.
Yeah.
That's when the Golden Globes was 9 people from Europe
You know who it was? It was like it was after the Pia Zadora thing
It was a
where they gave
controversy.
her an award for winning, and it was clearly kind of bought by Menachem Golub. So when I went, it was so unhip, and my fellow nominees were like Jack Nicholson and one incredible person after another, and no one showed except me and Jeff Daniels was at another table, and we're the only nominees in our category. We're going, what the hell are we doing here? And I was at a table with just Warner Brothers secretaries who they were given tickets, and they're so thrilled to be at the Golden Globes.
Right.
And but it was considered a really tacky thing. And when they were announcing the nominees, the camera guy, you know, they stick the camera so you see your face filled with anticipation, hoping you'll get it, or pretending you don't care. The cameraman, I'm looking at the monitor while they're doing it. The cameraman is filming a guy who looks kind of like me. Griffin Dunne. And the guy is so excited to be on camera. He starts waving, going, hi, like, hi, mom. And the cameraman was right next to me, and I just gave him a little kick. And if you watch it, you can see it on YouTube. The camera just goes to the right as the guy falls down.
So a guy gets, your doppelganger gets knocked over. Yeah. And then did you have a speech prepared? Or did anyone watch it then? It was the 85, right?
It was on Channel 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was on
out of Winnemucca. Channel 9 and Winnemucca.
Yeah, I think Pia Zadora, I've only heard in Dennis Miller references. That's about it. But she did have that whole hubbub.
Well, you know, she's actually a very sweet person. I met her, but you know, when she also on Broadway,
bad.
They had a when she was on Broadway, which was also kind of a paid for production a bit, you know. But
I love it.
On opening night, it was going so horribly. She was playing Anne Frank in Diary of Anne Frank, and at the very end, when the Nazis break into the apartment, someone yells from the audience, "She's in the attic!" And the whole place falls apart.
Oh, I have a hot take for Griffin on theater. This is a news story just after this weekend, and I know he has a lot of thoughts. So, Heather's gonna laugh. The Lion King on Broadway, Dana.
Yes.
You've heard of this play. It's a play, Griffin. It's a musical, we call it.
I vaguely heard of it. Nathan Lane voiced in the movie.
They have the auditions for, what's the person? Simba. After all the singers come in, all the kids and all the super talents in town, who gets the part? Kim Kardashian's daughter. Is she our Pia Zadora?
She's Simba?
Yeah, she is 10 years old, maybe. She played it, she sang it, and
it was all the other.
She got a standing ovation.
Hollywood Bowl this weekend, I guess.
Wow.
And there was a little bit of a hubbub going, wait, I don't remember her at the auditions. And everyone's like,
my attitude toward that is no one ever asked to be born from a wealthy family, or no one ever asked to have a famous dad. So I'm instantly rooting for her. And I'm hoping that she was great, because she didn't ask for this. She's just a kid, and she's 10, and she's in the
no one's going after the kid. It's more like the situation where is that detrimental for the kid to cut her in front of the line?
Is it sort of child abuse? I'm going to go to Griffin. I'm going to go to Griffin. I'm treating this more like I'm David Susskind. Let's go to, it's only got to be a certain age.
Go around Robin. Yeah, we go around.
I'm going to Griffin to weigh in, who, for our listeners don't know, grew up in a very asymmetrical household with massive Hollywood parties and celebrity and all that. So you might have something to say.
Yeah.
Mr. Dunn, if you will.
I guess, if you don't mind calling me that. I actually, this whole, we're constantly inventing new words to degrade people. And the latest one is Nepo babies.
Yeah.
And my feeling about that is I don't think it should be an automatic thing. But if we denied, people who were just because they were related to someone, I mean, we wouldn't have Robert Downey Jr. We wouldn't have the Bridges. we'd lose out in so many.
Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
It only gets you so far. It gets you maybe in the room. And my and it's also a brutal business. When I decided to become an actor, I was in my late teens, and my father, who had been a successful film producer or a successful television producer, a moderately successful film producer, but then had sort of imploded in his life by the time I entered. And I watched the business, the powerful agents in the studios cut him dead. So he really couldn't, as much as he wanted to help me. He didn't. He couldn't. It
was more detrimental at that point, almost.
Well, wait a minute. You're saying Hollywood agents and managers, when the money dried up, were not still loyal friends? Is this what you're suggesting?
Don't say that.
It's shocking, but they did not. They did not stick by him. They did not lend him money. They did not offer him lots of opportunities.
Was it only because he was doing less as careers go? All of ours, it slows down at a certain point, so they just kind of faded out.
Yeah, he sort of
he didn't do anything wrong.
Actually, he was like he got sober years later, but he was really funny, and but when he would get high or stoned or something, he'd be really funny, but he might say something that would be really scandalous, that would find himself in a gossip column, and then get in trouble and be pulled off a movie. That happens. I'm sure none of us can relate to that. And
yeah,
but he, he just sort of imploded in his career, and then got it back and reinvented himself as a writer later on once he got sober. And but it was back to the inheritance thing, and nepotism and everything. It only gets you so far, and the rest is yours to screw up.
Right? It's good and bad, I guess.
I mean, there's ways to go now. I don't know. Show business is very different. I'm going to make a bold statement, but I would like someone give him a hip hop producer, if they can dance a little bit, and I mean, there's ways to manufacture it now.
Yeah, right.
When we grew up, it was different. But just so people know your story, so your dad became infamous for many reasons. And your book, I'm just curious, you must cover all this, right? In your book? I'm just bringing it up. The Friday Afternoon Club, coming out June 11th.
You better.
And you have quite a story. I mean, I saw last night, my wife and I watched one of your documentaries, thought it was brilliant. Joan Didion documentary. Yeah. Fascinating. And you directed that, right?
That's your aunt. I did indeed. She was my aunt.
Yeah. So you're in an ecosystem of a lot of talented people.
Yeah.
And you fit in well.
Tangled web.
Thank you. Yes, my aunt and uncle, when I was growing up, were well-known writers. My uncle was John Gregory Dunne. And then when my father sort of reinvented himself, he became what he always wanted to be, was a writer. And then he became a crime journalist for Vanity Fair, covered the biggest trials, OJ.
Oh, yeah.
The Menendez trials, Phil
Menendez.
Spector. And he was a real strong presence in the courtroom, and a courtroom pundit on
oh yeah, and Vanity Fair, all those articles. Can I ask you a question about that? Because a lot of people would say, I want to write, So I'm just curious, what age was your dad when he kind of went off the radar? He drove through Oregon and ended up in a cabin.
Yep.
I mean, it's really down and out. And then he started to send letters to you that were in New York, 10, 20, 30 pages long. And you could tell that he was practicing what was his writer. So how old was he when he wrote his first book?
So he was 50, 51, 52,
yeah.
He was not published until he was about 51, I think, and that was in Vanity Fair, and that was writing about
It's starting pretty high.
Yeah. Well, he came back to New York. Really just started over. You know, he was a guy who went through a lot of money and started in New York. You know, in the 80s, coming back to New York in really humble sort of circumstances, and a smaller apartment than my first apartment in New York. But when he really found his voice was, tragically when his daughter, my sister, was murdered, and he wrote about it. Tina, before he left for the trial, before we all left for the trial, he met Tina Brown, who was just starting at Vanity Fair to take over, and she said he was explaining how scared he was and intimidated he was by the judicial system. He'd never been in a courtroom, certainly in these circumstances, and she said, keep a diary, a family's perspective of their first time, their abrupt awakening of the judicial system, as
interesting.
she said, keep a diary. And he did. And he wrote his very first published piece in his 50s was in Vanity Fair. And it was about what our family went through during the trial. And it was, it's a landmark piece in terms of victims' rights and in court procedure and in injustice is an example of courtroom injustice. So from then on, he found his voice, and he became the Vanity Fair crime correspondent, covering these trials, always with the victims in mind. He always thought of Nicole and the Brown family, or Ilana Clarkson, who was killed by Phil Spector. It always had that perspective.
And David and I could relate to what I think you go into probably in the book, that the emotional impetus was he had a rough time with his dad, or just a sense of being bullied. And David and I both experienced that. Me specifically, David, maybe he's a little more, his nickname Silver Spoon. No, but we both root for people fighting the bully. And you could tell that it was visceral with your dad. He did not hated bullies
too hard.
So that's why I loved him.
Yeah,
I love reading him because he just hated the bullies.
He really did. He really did. He, when you are bullied and you're a child, you grow up with a lot of fear around you. You grow up, constantly nervous. And, when he found his voice, he became fearless and just fought back at all those people who had the money, who had the power, who were always keeping him down. And it was an incredible transformation to see.
What a story! What happened to your sister, and how your dad kept the diary, and how as a family being there. That is beyond anything I could imagine. Because courtrooms, I've been in them. They're weird. They're strange,
cold.
People say crazy shit on that stand.
Yeah.
They're lying, and I didn't even know about paid liars in my trial.
Everything comes out about your family, and you don't want it. You don't see that coming. Half the stuff, probably.
Yeah. No, they try to destroy the person that the one that was killed or raped or whatever the thing. They try to destroy the reputation of the very person that was attacked.
Blame the victim. Like with me, I had a bypass. They bypassed the wrong artery. I'm fine, but it happens. But they tried to say it was my fault because I had crazy anatomy in there. That was their only defense.
Isn't that something? Yeah.
Yeah, and so they blamed the victim. But anyway,
what was particularly surreal for me, though, during the trial was in Santa Monica, and my whole family, we went every day to represent our Dominique, my sister. The days that I was not in trial, I was shooting a ridiculously funny comedy called Johnny Dangerously with Michael Keaton.
Saw it.
Yeah. Mike Keaton.
And who became a great friend of mine. And I would go, and I was playing Tommy Doyle, fighting DA. and trying to catch the criminal. And I was like a Mickey Rooney character,
Oh, really?
And
like hyperactive or
hyperactive. And then, and it was an incredible release to be able to, which my family did not have, to be able to put that aside and then just go and just be hilariously funny.
Right.
Around the funniest people on earth, and who didn't, or at least they didn't pop my concentration by asking me where I spent my days off from the movie. And,
great.
And I was just, I had, it's absurd, almost sinful to say, but I had so much fun making this movie, and it just was such a release. And then I go, from
such a bummer, the extreme opposite. You just walk into a courtroom and just
so schizophrenic. I go from 20th Century Fox to Santa Monica courtroom, and do this back and forth.
And because I watched the trailer again, and I did see the movie and loved it. I loved all that. What are you doing? Come on, get out of here! It's like this.
Yeah, I know.
It was really balls out silly. It was really really funny, almost like Airplane or something.
Yeah.
So I totally relate to, compartmentalization just sort of happens intuitively. You get up on in the movie. You could be kind of sad in the trailer, so you get out there and then you see Joe Piscopo or Michael Keaton. There's your lines, and you're doing ridiculous stuff. I mean, that is the dichotomy of those two things is hysterical.
Yeah,
bizarre.
Yeah, and I was very, very grateful and very lucky to have had that.
Michael Keaton is a blast too. He's super cool.
The greatest, and he's
probably he was where you are. He was where you are. He was in a box on Zoom. We were about a month ago. He's about, I could see how you and him could talk for hours without even telling stories and commenting. Yeah.
No, we hit it off like right away. And, that was over 40 years ago. And, we've been really close friends ever since. He's funny as hell.
Yeah. He's just funny and you're the same way. Just no pretense. I mean,
loose guy.
No sense of any awareness of that he's Michael Keaton at all. No. So I was going to ask you, just pivoting around here, because I wanted to say to Michael Keaton what I thought his superpower was that he's just really, really good thinking on camera.
Mm-hmm.
He's great at thinking. And we told him how The Founder was his sleeper movie. But for you, I was just going to ask you, because you got in American Werewolf in London, which I think it's a classic horror comedy film.
Sure.
And you're in massive prosthetics. Was that the first time? Because I love looking in the mirror and it doesn't look like me. But was that your first time?
That really was. That was Baptized by Fire.
Rick Baker.
The genius Rick Baker. He, when I never read for the movie. I'd never done in a movie, starred in a movie, maybe a small part here and there. But Landis didn't even, the director, John Landis, didn't even audition me. We talked for about 10 minutes. I'd done nothing. And he gave all he asked.
Wow. Landis, who was probably he was huge at that point.
He was the Animal House, the number one movie.
Oh my God.
So he talked to you in what way? Like he came to his office or?
Well, if you know Landis, he did all the talking. I don't remember saying a thing. And, and all he did was ask me, "Are you claustrophobic?" I said, "No." I would have said yes. I would have said no, even if it was yes. And, so I figured it was a guy trapped in an elevator. He wouldn't tell me what the movie was about. Then he gives me the part and he says, "You're going to Los Angeles for makeup." I read the script, thought it was amazing. Mm-hmm. He sent a guy to my apartment, made him stand in the hallway and made me hand the script back. And
9 hours later.
I'm a slow reader. And had to wake the guy up. And but anyway, I went to LA and then for a makeup test, and they put my head in plaster with two
terrifying
straws. And that's what he meant about the claustrophobia.
Yeah,
it is terrifying. And I failed that one. And your entire life depends on these two straws. And
I know. That's the scary part. Did you give a signal, or you just were?
How were you? Give me a safe sign. I think they left the room and had lunch.
Because it's terrible. I've had it, and I've had panic attacks. Yeah, but I held it. But I was, and then what happened is that they get it on your head. For people who don't know, and they keep going. Then you can't hear.
Yeah.
It goes out, you can't see, then it's shut in your mouth, and there's just these 2 little straws. If someone closed those off, you're out, lights out.
Dead.
Yeah.
Dead.
Then what they do,
they fall out,
Yes. And they're working on you, and they're kind of frantically working on you, and what you hear inside the thing is,
Yeah.
so I thought they were panicked.
Yeah.
So then they redid it, and I said, guys, just talk softly. Like, let's do this here. So anyway, go ahead. So you do that.
Anyway, then he puts on, then they start to apply it. And Rick, and each new layer,
Yeah.
it gets darker
You
and darker.
don't want to look like a pussy in front of Rick.
You do not. And I eventually did, because when I looked at that wiggly vein on my neck and he's painting it, and I looked at my face torn in half.
Oh, Claude.
So Claude, but it was the first transformation and the first application. And when I saw that, some people love Halloween, and they love to walk around with their head cut off and hatchets in their head and everything. I never quite had that about the relationship to Halloween. So most people would have loved this, but I was kind of freaked out by it. I was like, wow, this is what would look like if I died violently, really violently.
Scary.
And,
yeah.
My mother has always had health problems and has had MS, and I thought, this is going to really upset her. And so, of course, people, once we were shooting, they wanted to take me into pubs and give people heart attacks, and I just wasn't into it. I don't know.
But part of it, I mean, the scene that I was looking at yesterday is like you're in all this thing and you look like a werewolf zombie man. It's incredibly intense. It's not funny makeup. It's not comedic at all.
Real, yeah.
But you're talking very real and casual, and I think that's probably what Landis picked up from you. That you could be a real regular person. You wouldn't. You're not theatrical. If you don't want to be, you're just not. Acting.
Yeah, but lightness.
Basically,
he wanted the rhythm, the way I talk, or something.
The casual, looking that crazy, and then you're gonna be a werewolf in 24 hours.
I think that's exactly right. I think
and the transition that is still chilling. I think it was James Naughton,
David Naughton,
David, and he turns into one. And I'd never seen anything like that in the movie. Just the muscle, the stretching and the sound.
I know, all natural, no CGI. Yeah, that took. David was, prone to on all fours, or, for like a,
oh, really?
They applied hair by hair, all over.
Sick. In a related story, it's not related at all. But I had to get that stuff on my face for a life mask. And, Dana, I did the same thing, and they put it, and the guy goes, some people really panic. I go, well, not me. 'Cause I'm like, obviously super tough. And then they get closer and they go, now we're going to the ears. And they kept telling me, are you okay so far? I go, yeah, let's just get it over with. And they go, well, some people, it makes them panic. And they literally like slowly put it like over my mouth. And I go, take it off. Immediate panic, immediate, like they just told me, and I was all prepped for it. I couldn't even believe how fast my body changed. And my brain just said, I can't handle this. And then I had someone get me a Valium from the car. Of course, they're in the car. And then I took it right there, and I was like, I hope this takes effect within seconds, because I couldn't believe how scared I was and how I had to get out of that thing. It reminds us of that Jeff Daniels debacle on SNL, but that's the scariest
you know about
you can
the Jeff Daniels
No,
debacle?
I don't. What happened?
He got well, you know it better, David. I think you were there. He had a life mask put on, but they used the wrong.
They use real plaster, I think.
They use real plaster instead of whatever they used for us, and they had to get the paramedics in there to get it off.
Was this years ago or what?
80s SNL or early 90s? Yeah.
Relax. 90s, Dana. Jesus. Yeah. It was when I was there, and I missed your show, Griffin, by a little bit. Dana missed it barely. And Daniels was about 93, 94. And they said, do not. He goes, he wrote down, I feel sick. And they go, don't throw up or you'll die. Because, if you throw up in your mouth, it has nowhere to go.
No, there's nowhere. You're Jimi Hendrix.
So they couldn't get it off for hours. Anyway.
I'm not gonna. So I've got two that I want to. Well, one is I read the excerpt from your book, which I'll just say it. I could tell you really are a great writer. I know you've written screenplays and stuff, but now you have a memoir.
Mhm.
And the excerpt that they released, the PR people, was all about you and Carrie Fisher,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
was hysterical. I
Yeah.
don't know if you want to just preview that a little bit.
Start
But it's
squawking.
such an
So we were,
interesting.
we met when she was 15, I was 16. Um, and we lived some blocks away from each other, and we just became immediate best friends. And just, we talked to each other in song, breaking into silly musicals whenever we'd have conversations. And when I moved to New York to be an actor, well, she also introduced me to a girl. I don't think this is in the excerpt, but she introduced me to a girl that I eloped at the age of 17 to Tijuana and married. And she just wanted stories out of me. And then I went to New York, and we became roommates in New York. And we lived in
Interesting.
my narrative of being in New York was to be a starving, struggling New York actor who lived in the East Village. That was what I was doing. Then Carrie came to New York to be in the chorus of a musical that her mother, Debbie Reynolds, was in. And I would always go backstage, and I knew all the stagehands while the show was going on, and the lyrics to all the songs. And one night, Debbie said, I need you to. Carrie wants to live in New York, but I won't. I won't let her live alone. We have found an apartment for the two of you. It's in a building called the Des Artistes, which is a very fancy building on the Upper West Side.
Oh.
Mhm.
And I go, no, I'm a village guy. I was born to be in a village. Can't do that. And but they were maids' rooms in the Des Artistes, and they weren't the big loft windows that it was famous for. And we lived in that apartment, and we just had a ball. I was a waiter at Beefsteak Charlie's. I was a popcorn concessionaire at Radio City Music Hall, where I would feed the camels with popcorn during the nativity shows, and walk onto the set of go to Studio 8H. There were tunnels that would lead there. I'd
Ooh.
watch Saturday Night Live rehearse.
Yeah.
I'd wander onto the set of NBC Nightly News. And it was just like a great job. But then Carrie got a job, and actually acting, which is what I was hoping to do, acting in a movie. And she was going to have to go to London for months at a time. And I said, "What movie?" And she said, "Well, it's got a really stupid title, but and it's not a very good script. You would hate it. You would have turned it down." I went, "What's it called?" Because it's called Star Wars. I said, "Is that
Pass.
2 words? 1 word? What? Star War? W-A? No, it's Star and then Wars." And it's, you know, well, I said, "Well, who's in it?" Because somebody who's, yes, he's your age, but again, you would have turned it down. And Harrison Ford, you wouldn't know. And I did know Harrison because when he was a carpenter, he built my aunt and uncle's deck in Malibu, and I would share joints with him and try to help him build the deck. But I was too stoned to really be of any help.
So Han Solo would get blasted and try to put a bookshelf together.
But he could do it. I couldn't even.
Yeah.
I didn't know the difference between a measuring tape and a hammer. And anyway, she goes off and would call me while she's doing this movie in the middle. She'd be, as she was getting up to work, I was dead asleep. And I go, "How's it going?" And she would just go on. I wear bagels on my head. I'm on each of my ears. I'm
Leia.
surrounded by a big monkey. There's some, little person in a trash can who follows us around.
R2D2.
Yeah. And we have ray guns that don't even have triggers. This movie is going to be such a flop. And so when she came back, there was a screening at the Ziegfeld, and there'd never been any, test screenings or anything for this movie. So, but somehow people seem to know about this movie, and science fiction people like came from other planets to come to see this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And from the moment it started with that crawl,
yeah,
we knew, movies will never be the same.
Yeah.
And what I deal with in the book too is that point that happens in many friendships of people in this business where one person just hits it so big time, and I'm still a waiter at Beefsteak Charlie's.
Were you guys buddy, or were you dating, or what?
Oh no, we were always platonic. Although,
go ahead.
Never mind.
Continue.
There was an accidental.
Okay,
I call it accident.
It's more like it.
Yeah. It was just a brief period. She just needed some help in a particular area.
But you're
and
you're a waiter at Beefsteak Charlie, and she's blowing up globally.
Like
as Leia,
Leia. And
the phenomenon.
And then when you see someone when that happens, suddenly the phones just never stop ringing, and the quality of friends become more and more famous. And I would come back from Beefsteak Charlie's with wearing a little apron with my tip
beefsteak on you.
I go into my little bedroom, and there would be James Taylor, who's breaking up with Carly Simon, crying, and all these, the Eagles and all these people. I'm taking out my quarters and counting my quarters.
Glenn Fry, can you give me a 5 if I give you 100 quarters?
But it was we had to adjust to that.
And then she does Blues Brothers. We won't talk about her, but what a blast! What a fun.
But
run.
Then you had such a friendship that I'm assuming it changed, but it didn't really change. She's still like, you were her muse, you were her buddy. I'm assuming.
Absolutely. I mean, I changed because I was so
bitter,
a bitter, competitive, angry, ugly soul of an actor.
Yeah, an actor.
And
that's all. That's all of us.
Exactly. And I only wished her the ill will.
Well, also sometimes when you get famous like that, you need some people that you just know casually, because you miss the normal boring parts that are just like fun to hang out with someone, and I'm sure everyone is like a surfacey show busy friend after that. They don't know what's going on.
You don't, and
I'll tell you, if you know someone, I'll just insert this, someone before they're famous and you're really human with them and nice to them and actually do a favor for them or whatever, and then they become really famous, they never forget. Like you knew Carrie when. So you were not late to the lunch.
I was not late to the lunch. And so, we were, we had the same DNA. We had the same sense of humor. We had the, her life changed. I made adjustments. Once quite honestly, it took me garnering a certain amount of success of my own before I, started not having those feelings, not comparing myself, not,
of course,
and could just relax and get out of my own head, but we picked up. She was always the same with me. It was always on me, that kind of.
And then, this was just sort of interesting because of the way this person affected the culture. So you do Who's That Girl?
In
'87
with Madonna.
With Madonna, and you could see the influence of her extrapolating out. But this was her first movie, and she was new. And you'd done After Hours. You
did it. So you were like the bankable one, and and they need an anchor with her.
You're the film actor.
Yeah, I was a film actor. They wanted to have someone who acted with her, but as far as fame, they did not need me on the marquee. I've never to this day seen anyone so famous.
Well, peak Madonna is hard to compete
it was it was unreal. And she handled it with such grace and humor and everything. But I mean, we had to reloop every exterior shot because of the helicopters that were hovering.
Was she married to Sean Penn then as well?
She was. She was.
Okay. Double whammy.
Did he ever beat you up?
What?
Did he ever beat you up?
No, but I kept thinking, I would imagine that would happen.
It'll happen.
She is a real flirt, and
No, I'm
so
kidding.
I was open to possibility.
Uh,
But
I beat him up on Saturday Night Live, so we'll talk
you
about that
did
later.
good.
In character.
Yeah, of course. But
Beat the hell out.
there were those long lenses that I would see in my peripheral vision for months after the movie was shot. I mean,
oh, really?
everywhere you look, there was a lens somewhere from some location. And a certain amount of like hysteria. It didn't look like fun to be that famous.
Was it hard? Was it harder to shoot? She seems cool. I've seen her out
Yeah,
here and there,
totally cool.
And she seems like pretty light, pretty fun. Even in the middle of that, it's probably just goofy, but it's very hard to. Movies are tough anyway. I think people understand. Like you're cramming lines, you're trying to get things done, you're losing the light. Any distractions are just so tough to deal with.
On top
If
of
you're
that,
missing a day.
Yeah, and then we had mountain lions that we had to deal with.
In LA?
Yeah, no, on the set, the character.
Okay. The movie, sorry.
They were called Patagonian Felices, but they were big ass cougars, and
Right.
there were 5 of them, in each in degree of temperament. So we want the cuddly one was number 5, and you go to when he came on the set. But number 5, they'd need if they wanted one to growl and look menacing, and then all the cougars were in between. And so if we were with number 5 on the streets of New York, or any of the cougars for that matter, there would be snipers, New York City cop snipers on all the rooftops, and then nets to keep in case the cougar made a run for it. And then one time,
cougar.
and then one time they brought number 1 to the wedding scene, and we all knew number 1. We love number 1. It's so great. And then number 1's coming in, and somebody goes, "Woochie boochie boochie boot," and the cougar is on a location in a house, takes his paw and cuts a sofa in half. And we go,
whoa.
Wrong cougar.
Oh, you had them mixed up.
Wasn't the right numbers?
It was the wrong. They got somebody dyslexic.
Yeah, I could see that happening. Plus, the cougar, they want to get into acting. They got to deal with this shit,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely. I blame them.
Did you go through a phase? I'm just curious. This transition where you get famous for a moment, and what happens is all of a sudden, girls like you. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
in a different way.
More
it's
girls.
Just sort of interesting. I'm not saying you acted on whatever, but it's sort of. Well, your first blush of fame was that after that
was sort of after Werewolf, where I got like fan mail, and also girls finding out where I worked.
Beefsteak Charlie
showing up, but I moved on a little bit.
You threw that apron in their face.
What was weird when that came up, when that movie came out, I also produced movies. So I then had an office when that movie came out on 57th Street with my production company. And so girls would come to the production office, but there's a different kind of fangirl in horror movies than there are if, say, I did, French, if I did Truffaut films. Very different. So, a lot of girls with things, with hoops in their noses and studs in their lips and, half-shaved heads.
We've been to Comic-Con.
Yeah, you get the look.
Yeah, that's right. Did people try to come to the set when you were with Madonna, or was there no set visits?
There, yes.
They didn't care back then, did they?
Who came to our set was this unbelievable scumbag.
Dana Carvey.
I think
John Lovitz.
I think he's running for president.
Not
shooting
Trump,
in front of his building.
No.
And this man, he's got orangey long hair covering some sort of spot.
Dana's going to sound like him in 1 minute. Here we go.
I have no idea who it could be.
So he comes down in front of his building, and he just wedges his way onto the set and brings his own photographer you have a picture?
Let me
Somewhere out
through.
there's a picture of me, Trump, Madonna, and Dan Aykroyd,
Oh,
who also came to
Aykroyd's
the
there.
set the same day.
Love it.
We're coming in, bringing in any of the cougars you want. I've got no fear of cougars, and I can talk to a cougar. I've dated a couple cougars. Anyway,
There we go.
There's
There we go.
3,482 American citizens do Trump at this point.
I love it. I was waiting for that. You took too
Anyway,
long.
so you early on, I mean, I don't know how you were informed by seeing Hollywood from your perspective growing up and everything. You early on were producing. You ended up directing Meg Ryan and Matthew Broderick and
Diane Lane.
Love. I'm just Diane Lane. So it seems to me that you saw the whole dance of hot, not hot, medium hot. They want you every day. Go and you've worked consistently for 40 years. Incredible. So are you kind of are you zen about show business at this point? I mean, how has your attitude changed toward it, good, bad, or indifferent?
Well, I mean, I've been through all the colors you described. I've been.
Me too.
I'm just like I'm experienced like early success before I could truly appreciate it. I finally appreciate it, and my stock has dropped, and I'm not there. And then, I do something else, and I'd make a choice of like when I did have heat as an actor, I then decided to produce a movie I wasn't even in.
Right.
I'd be in a movie that was supposed to be like the Madonna movie. Supposed to be a huge hit. Turns out to be a flop. And then I produce again. Then I go, well, I'm going to become a director then. And that goes great. And I've been writing the ups and downs all the way through. But when I was writing the book, I actually had to like take my entire life, career, trajectory through all its phases. And I kind of came to the end like going, all these things that I used to kick myself for, I'm so glad they happened. I mean, each one was like an experience I actually did learn from. And I can look back, and even though I'm looking forward as well, but when I did look back while writing the book, I was actually really pleased with how everything turned out. Of not having a real game plan, or maybe there was a plan afoot, but I knew I was the kind of person who wasn't comfortable just settling into one particular aspect of storytelling, of just being an actor or just being a producer. So that sort of served me well in the long run. It just didn't feel like that in the short run.
Yeah. And in recent times you did This Is Us, Uncle Nicky, like intense drama and funny at the same time. And so you kind of have this, you're like, you could play drama or you can be funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but it's interesting to write a memoir. Was it nerve-wracking in a way when you started? Like, what's the discovery process? Was it painful to write certain parts and other parts like, man, that was an awesome time? Or I guess you just have wisdom now or perspective. Is that we all hope we get?
I've always known that I had a lot of funny stories that either happened to me or happened to family members that I grew up with that were, really outrageous and many very after hoursy, and in my personal life. And so I would always kind of keep a little log of like, I got to remember that. I got to remember, much like you guys do, and when you're in bits. And so I thought when I came to write a memoir, which I always kind of thought in the back of my head I eventually would. I thought it would be sort of a series of really funny anecdotes, a David Sedaris type me talking one day, and then when and not have it be chronological, have it be almost anecdotal. But then I thought, no, that's kind of a cop out. Just start at the beginning. And then I realized the beginning wasn't the beginning of my life. It was the beginning of my grandparents and great grandparents. So I started way back in how the Mexican Revolution affected my mother's side, and the Great Irish Famine affected my father's side. And I just went chronologically. And with that came, we were talking about my father was very bullied as a child, and his painful childhood memories. And then my mother's growing up on a ranch on the border of Mexico, with her father absent during World War II, and kind of bringing them up until I was born. And it just sort of turned into an actual memoir. I call it a family memoir because it's not just about me. It's, the biographies of everyone in my family. So it wasn't painful. It was, sometimes it was so exciting. I'd be acting in something, and when the camera would be turning around, I'd go back to my dressing room and I'd just knock off a paragraph. I could not wait to get back to it.
Yeah.
Because it was like I was bringing my family back alive. Only my brother is the only person left out of my immediate family, and who I spoke to before I wrote a word. I really wanted his blessing, which he gave me, and so it was like having my family with me. It was more difficult to finish it than it was to write it, because I really loved the company of these people. I really admired all their struggles, and
I'd like to do it.
Yeah,
I just
you
think
could,
writing.
Dan.
I've only done a few things. When President Bush died, the New York Times asked me to write an article. I did it with my wife. She's she knows about grammar. She went to Catholic school.
gotta have that.
And
Yeah,
she's a great editor and a great bounce. But it can be exhilarating to write a sentence like in the excerpt I read was laugh out loud funny when Carrie Fisher is asking you about your sex life or whatever, or your ADD. So that's kind of a thrill, right? When you're writing is rewriting all these cliches, but when you get a great paragraph, like that's it. Or if you want poignancy, how do I end that thing? Yeah, I landed it. So, and it's immersive. It's just you. So did you run it by your wife, or do you have a confidant, or David Duchovny asked to read it? Or
David Duchovny.
Well, I gave it to David pretty early on.
Oh, okay.
And I had a wonderful editor at Penguin who published the book, a guy named John Burnham Schwartz, who it was a novelist that by coincidence, I'd read his novels before. I didn't even know he was an editor, but I liked his writing so much, and I learned a great deal from him. But I gave early copies. A great friend of Carrie's is Beverly D'Angelo,
Yeah.
and ours, and
Sweetheart.
and so I gave her. She's a hilarious person, and I gave her like the Carrie chapters to make sure I got it right. And I mean, that was one of the most fun parts, because I always knew the book would be dealing with the tragedy, the trial, and a lot of really heavy stuff coming up. But I also knew it would be funny, and especially if I channeled Carrie. And Beverly said, "God, man, you just got her." It was like she was there in the room with you. So that gave me confidence,
Speaking of funny stuff, just we don't have to all day, but we love to. This was going by so fast. It's just your After Hours. It's a big movie. Martin Scorsese. You can talk to that if you want, because that seems he'd already done Raging Bull, which is and then you're on SNL. It's kind of a thing in Hollywood in those days. I was there. I arrived 6 months later, I think.
Yeah.
You were in March. I premiered in October. So I don't know, just it must have been, I mean, your monologue was so quirky.
Yeah.
I didn't ever see anything quite like it, where because I was thinking you're playing it very real. I'm really excited to be here, just so people, and it's on YouTube. And then it's clear you're kind of nervous. You're looking a little sweaty, and you're starting to kind of itch your head, and clumps of hair come out. It's just really building. And you go, is it me or is it hot in here? And then you're just drenched in sweat. And that's quirky enough. I thought, okay, that's a great monologue. And then they bring out a surfboard and you play Wipeout with one hand with such a non sequitur.
Completely.
How did that happen?
Well, as you know from the, when you have the first time the cast meets the host, do you have any special activities that you were really good at? You do accents and all that. And I said, well, I know how to play Wipeout one-handed. I just threw that out. I didn't.
Throw in the monologue.
And
That's a
I
drum
was
solo from the 1960s.
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
No. And so but I would also talk to Lauren about, my monologue, my opening monologue, and I was kind of nervous about it. He goes, well, all the guests, all they do is talk about their opening monologue. Well, that's the most important part of the show. It's just an intro. We don't care. Take the pressure off.
We don't care.
And he goes, every guest. I'm so, just so tired of it all.
He's had it. Yeah.
From all these hosts.
He had it back then.
Yeah, exactly. He's got another 50 years
He was
to go.
burnt out 50 years ago.
And so I don't know, somehow that evolved into just being the most nervous guest in the history of SNL.
Yeah.
And they put, things in my hair that sweat.
Yeah.
And there's a guy off camera, like a watering can, pushing.
It's always good to get soaking wet right before you're doing a whole night of sketches.
Well, that's what's so fun about it is like, yeah, you must know this. I've seen it happen a million times. All you guys, where the dress is disastrous.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you go, oh my God, how is this ever going to work?
Gonna cobble this shit.
You don't want to go back out. And
Many times. Just tap out.
Like let's just disappear. And then for some reason it all comes together.
Wait, I have a big question for you. Were you there? We talked to Lovitz yesterday. Lovitz told me you were in this sketch with Damon Wayans where he got fired. Yeah. So is that true? That's pretty.
It's totally true. We were doing like a Scarface kind of a thing, and I was doing like a Pacino Scarface thing, and we did the dress, and he's the cop interrogating me, and where's the drugs kept? Where's when's the shipment coming in or whatever it was, and suddenly, and once we're shooting, it's where are the drugs? When's the shipping coming in? And there's a whole lisp involved. I'm going, well,
that's on the air show, right?
Yeah.
Live.
Yeah. And I go, so I guess I didn't get the rewrite on that. And,
there's such chaos between dress and air. You're like, they definitely forgot to tell me. They definitely
completely forgot that. I didn't know, or I didn't notice. I don't know.
Right.
And apparently, as soon as he got in the wings, it was like, go home.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, I wasn't privy to it. I didn't know. I didn't actually know till I read it in the book.
I thought you fired him.
Yeah. No, God, no.
Damon Wayans is a brilliant comedian who
he went on and did fine.
In Living Color. What was
he probably thought? Yeah, I should go do In Living Color. And
he proved himself a brilliant. Just so we get that out. I'm just curious because I was possessed and still am possessed by Al Pacino's performance in Scarface, literally. How did you do that? Did you look at tape, or was it a
I totally looked at tape, and I was really loud, just like him.
When the yelling part,
yeah.
You are you like a man? They tell you where to go. They tell you
I fucking kill you. I kill you.
Yeah, he was loud sometimes, Dana, in just normal scenes. I think I remember. He just goes a little louder, and over Stephen Bauer, who seems quieter now.
It's an operatic performance.
Oh, yeah.
I guess people call that, but I think I've heard it's his favorite film. By the way, I'm always curious with film actors, like, and you as a kid or now or then, like, what are the people who kind of you looked up to, or just,
Oh, I can tell you in a second. It's always been from the moment I saw The Graduate, which I was too young to see, but somehow got into theater and saw it. I looked at that guy, Dustin Hoffman, and I went, I'd never seen an actor like that in a movie, and also be so nervous and so funny and so all over the place. I thought, and then I found out he grew up blocks from me in LA and moved to New York to be an actor. Boom, that's what I'm going to do. And when when you grow up in LA,
is that Brentwood?
Getting your driver's license is the most important day of your life. And that happens on your birthday, on your 16th birthday. And so on my 16th birthday, I wake up and I got to go to the DMV to get my license. And there's nobody home, not one adult. My mother's gone or whatever. So I get in the car in my family station wagon. I drive myself to the DMV. And the instructor goes, guys giving me a test, go, is your chaperone here? And I went, oh, she's in the bathroom. All right, fine, go. I finished the test. I pass. I need your chaperone to sign this. I go, I don't know where she is. Never mind. I get in the car. Greatest day of my life. I'm so excited. I'm leaving Montana Street outside the DMV in Santa Monica. And I run a red light. And a car comes 6 inches, almost smashing into me. And the driver is screaming at me, calling me a motherfucker. I'm looking at the veins in his neck. And my eyes travel up. And it's Dustin Hoffman.
Oh my God. No.
And I just smile. I'm going, oh my, what the fuck are you smiling at? Why are you really killing us?
Wow.
And I went, I'm moving to New York. I can't wait.
Wow.
Love it. Love Dustin.
I watched,
so anyway, he was a major.
I watched that movie 6 weeks ago. My wife and I are we watch certain movies, every few years. And that one is so brilliant.
I think I've seen that movie more than any other movie ever.
Mike Nichols and Dustin. I mean, no one captures the way you feel about your parents when you're in your 20s, early 20s. And they seem like bobbling, drunken fools. It's so amazing.
All right. Well, Griffin, thank you so much.
The book is, I'll do a Larry King here. The book is The Friday Afternoon Club. It comes out June 11th. And just if you've listened to this podcast, I'm hoping you will get excited to go read this book because you're a great storyteller verbally. Did you do the audio on tape?
I did. It was kind of amazing to read your entire life in 4 days.
I'm going to try to get the audio book and start walking and go keep walking until you finish.
You will look up, we'll be in San Francisco.
All right.
Anyway,
thanks,
such a pleasure to meet you. Good luck to you. And
I love you guys. You guys are great. I'm so honored and thrilled you had me on.
This has been a presentation of Audacy. Please follow, subscribe, leave a like, a review, all the stuff. Smash that button, whatever it is, wherever you get your podcasts. Fly on the Wall is executive produced by Dana Carvey and David Spade, Jenna Weiss-Berman of Audacy, Charlie Finan of Brillstein Entertainment, and Heather Santoro. The show's lead producer is Greg Holtzman.